This is not about contact with an outside entity, he explained. It is a resonance process. Children are acting as recipients of a collective memory. They are remembering what we forgot. When journalists asked him what that meant, Ortega replied with a chilling phrase. Elon Musk knew that the Atlas was not looking for life on other worlds. I was looking for our previous lives. At the same time, Julia discovered that Matteo had begun to write. He still couldn't read or write properly, but he filled entire pages with symbols and lines that seemed to float on paper. The experts to whom he showed the notes agreed on something terrifying. The strokes corresponded to a script found on a metal plate recovered next to the first fragment of the Atlas, buried in Nevada in 1959. When Julia asked him what they meant, Matteo replied without hesitation. They are the coordinates of the heart of the Atlas. What Elon didn't want to awaken. That night, the boy got out of bed and walked to the yard. The sky lit up with a blue glow more intense than ever. The seismology sensors detected vibrations at 3.33 Hz, the same frequency as the human brain in a state of deep sleep. Julia ran to him, but Matthew raised his hand and murmured, "Don't follow me. If I do, they'll shut up." "Who will be silent?" she cried. "Those who remember," said the boy, and at that moment a stream of cold air swept through the neighborhood. In the international news, disappearances of children with similar behaviors began to be reported. All of them, according to their parents, spoke in their dreams about the same subject, the Atlas. Some said that the bridge had opened, others that the key was already turning. The networks were filled with videos of children drawing the same symbol, 3 interconnected circles. And in most of them, in the background, a barely perceptible humming sound could be heard, like an electronic heartbeat. On November 7th, at 3:33 a.m., the world's observatories recorded an unprecedented event. A beam of blue energy emerged from the Nevada desert and was projected into Earth orbit. NASA classified it as an ionospheric phenomenon without explanation. But a group of engineers leaked a photograph taken from a military satellite. The lightning did not come out of the ground. It came out of an underground structure. In the center of the pulse, there was a human figure, barely visible, floating. Julia saw the image in a clandestine transmission. His body was paralyzed. The figure, though distorted, was in the shape of a small child. "It's him," he murmured. "It's Matthew." A few hours later, Elon Musk unexpectedly reappeared in a private broadcast. His face was pale, his gaze lost. He said only one sentence before the signal cut off. "Atlas has already chosen. What sleeps in us is awakening." Julia fell to her knees, knowing that what had begun with a childhood nightmare was no longer just a personal mystery. It was the echo of something much older. And in the midst of the silence, the television turned on by itself. A soft, childlike voice spoke from the screen. "Mom, don't cry." Elon didn't shut up out of fear, he was silent to give us time. The early hours of November 8, 2025 marked the beginning of what would later be known as the Night of the Echo. No country wanted to officially assume what was happening, but the records were impossible to hide. For exactly 33 seconds, all of the planet's communication satellites sent out the same pattern, 3 pulses, followed by an interval of silence. Those who were awake at the time claimed to have heard a low, enveloping sound, like a metallic sigh coming from the Earth itself. Lights flickered in millions of homes, and electrical systems were overwhelmed. On monitors at various observatories, a shape began to be drawn on radiation max, a spiral emerging from the center of the Nevada desert and expanding into outer space. Meanwhile, in Guadalajara, Julia Hernandez remained locked up in her house, without sleeping, surrounded by her son's drawings and notebooks. Each page showed a different fragment of the same symbol, repeated over and over again, 3 circles joined by a central axis, with a lowercase inscription underneath. Julia tried to translate the letters, but none of them matched the known alphabets. However, when she placed all the sheets side by side, she understood what her son had tried to show her. It was a map. Not of space, but of human memory. The lines did not represent orbits or trajectories, but connections. Each circle bore a name written in crooked letters: Thesa, Ephra, Atlas. And in the center, in an empty space, a single word: origin. Julia didn't know what it meant, but she felt that it wasn't just a drawing. It was a warning. At noon, the newscasts were suddenly interrupted with an unauthorized transmission. On all the screens of the world appeared the image of Elon Musk, pale, emaciated, with his face illuminated only by the blue glow of some device in front of him. His voice was low, almost trembling, but every word seemed to weigh like lead. There is not much time left. The Atlas is not orbiting. It never left the planet. It's beneath us. The authorities tried to cut the signal, but the transmission was multiplied by thousands of alternative channels. Musk went on to speak. What we discovered in Nevada was not an artifact. It was an entity. Its metal structure is only the form it takes here, in our dimension. But what it really is, what it represents, it is a distributed mind. Every fragment of the Atlas is alive, and when one wakes up, the others remember. There was a long silence. Then, his gaze hardened. The Mexican child is not connected by accident. He was chosen because his brain frequency matches that of the nucleus. When the Atlas III was activated, its signal looked for a compatible pattern and found it in it. That's why he dreamed it before he saw it. That is why he remembers it. Because Atlas doesn't send messages, calls those who were once a part of it. The transmission was suddenly interrupted, leaving an icy static. For minutes, no one knew if it had been real. But a few hours later, the networks began to fill with the same video taken by witnesses in different countries, a blue sphere slowly ascending from different points of the planet, floating in silence, as if it were observing. They were not drones or satellites. They were something else. Julia stared at the screen with tears in her eyes. Her son was sleeping, but his breathing followed the same rhythm as the pulsations of those lights. Every time one of them lit up, Matteo murmured something between dreams, single words, fragments of a language that seemed to vibrate with the earth itself. At one point, he sat up, still asleep, and said in a deep voice, "It's not Elon who is keeping the secret. It's Atlas that guards Elon." The mother felt a chill run through her body. The silence became so thick that even the air seemed stopped. "What do you mean by that, son?" he whispered. But Matteo no longer listened to her. His gaze had been lost in some invisible point. In Washington, NASA issued an emergency statement. According to its sensors, the Atlas III had disappeared from radars. There was no signal in Jupiter's orbit, nor in any known trajectory. However, a new source of energy had appeared on Earth, exactly under the coordinates that Matthew had recited days earlier, the Nevada desert. The analyses showed that the underground structure was slowly expanding, as if something was waking up. The Department of Defense ordered a covert operation. More than 200 technicians and scientists were mobilized to the area. None were seen again. Satellite records for the next 48 hours were classified. But a group of hackers leaked 3 frames. In them was a crater surrounded by a blue glow, and in the center, a human figure kneeling in front of a luminous sphere. Some claimed it was Musk. Others swore it was a boy. The world began to fall apart psychologically. People from different countries claimed to hear voices in their dreams, repeating the same message: "Don't stalk him. We have experienced it before." Psychologists began to speak of a global psychosis induced by technological narratives. But the biometric record said otherwise. The brain waves of those affected showed a common pattern, a constant vibration at 3.33 Hz, identical to the signal detected in the core of the Atlas. Julia, desperate, decided to escape from Guadalajara with her son. He drove for hours north, aimlessly, until the vehicle began to fail. Every time he tried to restart it, the engine would make a humming sound similar to the signal his son was uttering in his sleep. Finally, he stopped in the middle of a deserted road. The sky, a metallic blue, seemed to pulsate. Matthew, half asleep, said, "He's calling us." The heart of the atlas is not there, is underneath. Julia looked at the horizon and saw something impossible. The earth in front of them vibrated, and lines of light emerged from the ground that intersected in geometric shapes. They looked like roots, but not of a tree, metal roots. Each one stretched for miles, forming a network that followed the relief of the continent. Suddenly, his phone, although without a signal, began to ring. As she answered, a female voice spoke from the other side, broken by static. "Mrs. Hernandez, I am Dr. Amy Lowell, from the Atlas Division. We know where it is. Don't be afraid. Your child is not in danger. He is the connection." Julia didn't understand. What does it mean? What connection? The consciousness that inhabits the Atlas is awakening. He is trying to reconstruct the lost memory. And his son was the first to remember it in its entirety. Before he could answer, the call was cut off. The phone went off, and a blue glow covered the interior of the car. Mateo opened his eyes and whispered, "It's already started, Mom. We are not the first humans." At that same time, in all the capitals of the world, the clock stopped at exactly 3:33. The same message appeared simultaneously on all communication screens: the human bridge activated. Vector Atlas in progress. Astronomers around the planet reported the appearance of a second object near Earth's orbit, moving in sync with the planet. Its shape was identical to that of the Free Eye Atlas, but its size was colossal, almost equal to that of the Moon. What was most disturbing was not its appearance, but its surface. It was covered by millions of hexagonal patterns that reflected the lights of human cities. Experts concluded that the object did not orbit, it was reflected. It was as if the Earth had a mirror in space, an invisible duplicate waiting for its total synchronicity. At that moment, Julia understood what her son had wanted to say all along. The Atlas was not a machine created to explore other worlds. It was an echo, a reminder of an earlier version of humanity that had forgotten who it was. Each frequency, each child, each dream, was part of the same mechanism, the restoration of collective memory. Mateo looked at her and smiled with an unearthly calmness. Elon didn't betray them. He just waited for the moment when we could all remember together. And as the blue glow enveloped the road, Musk's voice was heard in all the broadcasts, this time clear, serene, without filters or interference. Atlas is awake. But he did not come to warn us. He came to unite what we once were. The words resonated in every corner of the planet. Some fell to their knees, others cried without understanding why. And in the eyes of the children, in their innocent calm, the glow of the same blue that covered the sky was reflected. Julia took her son's hand. "And now what will happen, Matthew?" The boy looked up, with a slight smile, and replied, "Now let's remember what we dreamed of being." November 9th, 2025. The dawn was different. There was no sun, no shadows, no visible sky. Everything was covered by a blue mist that seemed to have life. Within minutes, the planet's digital clocks began to mark the exact same time, 3 hours 33 minutes and 33 seconds. No measurement system could explain it. It was as if time had stopped, not because of a technical glitch, but because of perfect synchrony. The sensors of the space stations confirmed the impossible. The new object orbiting the Earth, the one that scientists called Atlas reflection, moved at exactly the same rate as the rotation of the planet, as if both were beating in unison. In the streets, millions of people looked up without understanding what they were seeing. Some prayed, some screamed, some just cried. The sky had become a luminous mirror. And within that reflection, lights could be seen moving, human figures walking through clouds of energy. It was as if another world, identical to ours, was revealing itself behind an invisible curtain. At a remote point in Nevada, where it had all begun, a military convoy was trying to access the epicenter of the afterglow. The radiation sensors were going crazy. The men trudged through dense air, charged with electricity. At the center of the crater, They found a living structure, a pulsating metallic sphere, covered in filaments that stretched beneath the Earth. And in front of her, a kneeling human figure. He was not a soldier. It was Elon Musk. Leaked recordings later showed him looking up at the sky, completely surrounded by the blue light of the Atlas. "I can't stalk him anymore," he said in a calm voice. "I can only accompany him." The microphones then picked up a second voice. It was childish, but deep, resonant. "You don't have to stalk him, Elon. It was you who dreamed it first." The figure of a child began to materialize next to him, floating a few centimeters off the ground. There was no fear on his face, just absolute serenity. It was Mateo Hernandez. The energy intensified. The instruments failed. The soldiers fell back, blinded by the light. In the seconds that followed, a low-pitched sound was heard, like the heart of the planet beating from the center of the Earth. And then, everything stopped. The whole world fell silent. The compasses rotated uncontrollably. The clocks collapsed. In the cities, the screens lit up on their own, and a simultaneous broadcast invaded each channel. Billions of people saw the same thing, Elon and Matthew, standing in front of the Atlas sphere. Around him, a storm of particles formed a hypnotic, almost biological pattern. Musk spoke first. The 3i Atlas was never a machine for space travel. It was a mirror. An archive. A memoir that contained the first version of what we were. When we reactivate it, we do not find extraterrestrial lives. We find ourselves, before oblivion. Matthew raised his hand and placed it on the shiny surface. The metal responded with a pulse of light that expanded into perfect waves. Elon was afraid, the boy said. Feared that by remembering, the world would be destroyed. But memory does not destroy, rebuild. Thousands of people in different countries began to experience the same phenomenon. Their minds were filled with images that did not belong to this era. Crystal cities suspended over oceans, languages spoken without words, human beings with luminous eyes capable of moving matter with thought. Some cried, others laughed, others simply stood still, understanding something that could not be put into words. The Atlas had achieved its purpose, to activate the collective memory of the planet. Governments tried to cut transmissions, but it was useless. The signal did not come from the power grid or satellites. It came from human consciousness itself. The brain waves of the entire planet vibrated at the same frequency, 3.33 Hz. Julia, watching from a makeshift shelter, understood that her son no longer belonged to her alone. "Matthew, can you hear me?" she whispered with tears in her eyes. And a soft voice answered within his mind, "Always, Mom. I'm in everyone." In that instant, the surface of the Atlas opened like a mechanical flower. A beam of golden light emerged from inside and rose to the sky, passing through the atmosphere until it reached the orbital reflection. Both worlds, the Earth and its mirror, came together in a single image. The colors melted. The blue turned white. The broadcasts showed how Musk and Mateo disappeared inside the core. The sphere slowly closed and, seconds later, disintegrated into thousands of luminous fragments that were scattered throughout the planet. Some fell into the oceans, others embedded themselves in the mountains, others floated for days in the air before dissolving. And then, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in history, all humans experienced the same dream simultaneously. In it, a blue-eyed boy guided them through a corridor of light that linked two worlds. Beside him, Elon Musk walked silently, holding a glowing sphere in his hands. "This is not the end," the boy's voice said. "It's the restart. Atlas is not looking for the future. It recovers what we lost, the memory that we were one." The dream lasted exactly 33 seconds. When he woke up, humanity was no longer the same. The borders were blurred. The wars stopped. For hours, people talked to each other in languages they didn't know, but understood each other perfectly. The children drew structures that no adult could understand. And in every corner of the planet, clocks were running again, marking the exact time of synchrony, 3:33 a.m. The US government released an official report weeks later. They called it the Atlas event. They denied any extraterrestrial intervention, although they confirmed the disappearance of Elon Musk and the Mexican boy, Mateo Hernandez. Included in a confidential document was a final sentence handwritten by an anonymous official. Musk's silence was not fear. It was reverence. He knew that mankind was not ready to remember what once was. From that day on, small luminous spheres began to appear in different parts of the planet. Scientists called them fragments of the core. Each emitted a frequency of 3.33 Hz, the same as human dreams during the event. The authorities tried to collect them, but they disappeared when touched, leaving a sense of calm and clarity in those who saw them. Julia never saw her son again. But every morning, when the clock struck 3:33, a blue light illuminated the room. And in the midst of that light, Matthew's voice spoke to him from the air. Elon didn't shut up out of cowardice, Mom. He was silent to give us time to understand. The Atlas does not keep secrets, keep promises. Since then, an invisible whisper has been circulating the world every night. Some hear it as a hum, others as a distant psalm. Scientists call it Atlas noise. But those who were there, those who felt it on their skin, know that it is not noise. It is memory. It is humanity remembering its origin. And in the skies, sometimes, when the clouds open and the air vibrates with that impossible blue, you can see a childish figure, watching from above, smiling in silence. Some say it's an optical illusion. Others, that it is Matthew, guarding the bridge between worlds. What you just heard is not just any story. It is an echo. A story that, like Atlas itself, could only be a warning, or a memory. And you? What do you think will awaken when humanity looks at the sky again and hears the same pulse? Let me know what you think in the comments. If this story shook you, like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. Because, sometimes, the answers aren't in space, but in ourselves. See you in the next story. But not everyone wanted that bridge to open. Days later, 3 unmarked black vehicles arrived at the Harper home. Men in gray suits descended, displaying insignia of a government agency. They said they came to transfer Emily to observe her in a controlled environment. Andrea refused. The discussion was brief. The men left without using force, but before leaving, one of them dropped a small metal device on the ground. Andrea picked it up. It was a microchip with the symbol of the Free Atlas engraved on the surface. That night, Emily spoke again in her sleep. His voice, broken up, said, "Those who built the Atlas are already here. Not everyone remembers who they are. But he did, he remembers." The he was evident. Trump. Satellite records indicated that his plane had briefly reappeared over the North Atlantic. However, the radars showed a second object following the same trajectory, a light reflection that appeared to move within the signal itself. When the analysts superimposed the images, they discovered that this glow contained 3 concentric circles, identical to the ones Emily drew every day. From then on, the broadcasts adopted a new tone. They were no longer warnings, but instructions. On military frequencies, messages with the structure of strategic orders were detected, digitally signed by a code associated with the old White House communications system. The header was the same on all lines. DISA Project, Authorization 45. Officers who analyzed the content discovered that the messages were partially written in the vector language Emily spoke. Partial translation spoke of genetic memory, resonant structure, and rebirth of the human axis. Andrea began to get sick. He suffered from intense migraines, as if his head vibrated. Doctors found no physical cause. Emily, on the other hand, seemed stronger, more awake. He said that the final echo would soon come and that, when that happened, everyone would remember FISA. In the early morning hours of November 7th, an electromagnetic storm covered the northern hemisphere. The compasses rotated uncontrollably. The satellites were out of orbit for 33 seconds. When the system was restored, every screen in the world showed the same image, a girl looking up at the sky, with a golden glow behind her. It was Emily. And a voice, recognizable and firm, resounded in millions of homes. The message was delivered. The 3i Atlas has awakened. FISA remembers. In the days following the global broadcast, the world changed without warning. There were no catastrophes or explosions. It was not the end, but a silent beginning. Something began to beat everywhere, in the power grids, in the oceans, in the air itself. Scientists from different countries reported a phenomenon never before observed, a rhythmic, uniform electromagnetic pulse that repeated every 33 seconds. They called it the echo of the Atlas. On the surface, nothing seemed out of control. But people began to have the same dreams. Men, women, and children from different continents described identical visions: a golden sky, a light-haired girl walking on a bridge of light, and behind her, a human shadow watching in silence. Some said it was Elon Musk, others swore it was Trump. The only thing that was certain was that the image was accurately repeated in millions of minds at the same time. Andrea Harper had not slept since the broadcast. Her daughter's voice kept echoing even when Emily remained silent. The girl barely ate, but she seemed more and more awake. Her skin emitted a faint glow in the dawnlight, and her breathing followed the same rhythm as the vibrations measured by scientists around the planet. She's in sync with the world, a clandestine investigator who had managed to contact her told her. It was Dr. Matthias Heller, a former member of the Atlas 3i project before it was dismantled. Heller secretly traveled to Denver to see the girl in person. When he saw her, his face paled. "It can't be," he murmured. "What we predicted in the FISA files was real. The Atlas didn't just transmit data. It sowed memories." Andrea didn't understand. "What do you mean by that?" Elon Musk built the Atlas based on plans he found among the remains of an earlier experiment, from the 60s. They did not come from Earth. They came from an object recovered in the Nevada desert. We thought they were fragments of a lost technology. But in reality, they were messages from an earlier human civilization. The girl is one of them. That night, Heller installed measuring equipment around the house. The sensors detected brain waves that expanded beyond Emily's body, forming a field around her. The energy pattern matched the electromagnetic map of the Earth. It was as if his mind was directly connected to the planet. "It's transmitting," Heller whispered as the oscilloscope's needles vibrated violently. "And someone is answering it." At 3:33 a.m., the computer registered an interference. The signal was clear, human. A male voice emerged from the buzzing. "This is Project FISA. Trump confirming contact. The bridge is stable." The human vector completed the anchoring phase. Heller put his hands to his head. "It can't be him. This comes from outside the network, from beyond the satellite spectrum." Andrea approached Emily, who was sleeping soundly. "Who's talking, daughter?" The girl, without opening her eyes, replied, "It's him. He has already crossed. He's trying to come back, but he needs the second bridge." The second bridge became an obsession for Heller. He reviewed every Atlas document he had managed to keep. He found references to a protocol never activated, DISA Gate, a quantum interface intended to stabilize the transfer of interplanetary consciousness. According to the archives, the Atlas 3i was released not only to explore, but to establish communication with another version of humanity. Not aliens, but us, in another time, on another plane. On November 10th, a global blackout simultaneously affected more than 20 countries. The power plants were inoperative for exactly 33 seconds. During that time, the satellites picked up a signal that passed through the Earth's core and reflected back into space. The shape of the pulse was identical to the symbol Emily drew from the beginning. When electricity returned, every screen in the world, televisions, phones, airplane panels, digital watches, showed a single image, a golden-eyed girl saying a phrase that chilled the blood of millions. The bridge opened. There is no longer up or down. In Denver, Emily sat up with a start, as if she had sensed the exact moment of the broadcast. "You all heard," he said in a soft voice. "Now will come those who remember." Within hours, reports began. People in different parts of the world began to speak languages they did not know. Some wrote symbols identical to those that appeared in Emily's notebooks. Others claimed to hear an inner voice repeating phrases such as, "Atlas awakened," "Vector completed," "The echo returns." Scientists couldn't explain it. Some spoke of a phenomenon of global suggestion. But the records showed a chilling detail: the brain rate of all those affected matched that of the planet's electromagnetic pulse. Dr. Heller warned Andrea, there is no way to stop it. It is a cognitive contagion. Every person who hears it, every mind that remembers it, becomes part of the system. The Free Eye Atlas was not a machine, it was a seed of memory. And it's flourishing. That same night, the girl began to talk in her sleep. His voice recorded itself in Dr. Heller's system. The message was brief. Trump was not elected. He was remembered. He was part of FISA. His mind holds the key to return. From that moment on, the word FISA began to appear in impossible places, in television broadcasts, in fragments of computer code, even in the lines of text of web pages that had nothing to do with the subject. In hidden forums, some claimed that language itself was beginning to change, that certain words took on different meanings without anyone being able to explain it. Andrea watched as her daughter drew tirelessly, tracing golden landscapes and floating towers. "What are you doing, my love?" he asked in a trembling voice. "I'm remembering our home," Emily said, not looking up. "We were not afraid there. But here they forgot who they are." Outside the house, people began to gather who said they had dreamed of the girl. They came from different parts of the country, guided by an intuition that they could not explain. They said they heard a sound under the earth, a murmur that called them. Some of them claimed to have worked years ago in secret NASA and Air Force programs, although they did not remember when or how. They all had something in common: identical scars on the back of their necks, in the shape of free lines. Dr. Heller examined them. "They are marks of removed implants," he murmured. "Old devices from the Atlas program. We thought they had been destroyed." That same night, Emily went out into the garden barefoot, under a sky that seemed to breathe. The air vibrated. Those present felt an invisible force preventing them from moving. The girl raised her hands to the sky and pronounced something in the vector language. The sky responded with a golden light that spread to the horizon. At that moment, all the clocks stopped. The recording of the phenomenon was played millions of times, although no one could explain its origin. On the screen, before the video was cut, Emily's voice could be heard saying, "The message is complete. All that remains is for him to speak." "Who do you mean, Emily?" asked Andrea. The girl looked at her tenderly. "Donald. You can see us now. You just have to remember your real name." The mother fell to her knees. "What name?" Emily smiled. "Fesserin." From that night on, no one saw Dr. Heller again. The files he was carrying with him were confiscated by unidentified men. Security cameras showed his car disappearing in a blue flash. Meanwhile, on underground networks, users began to share a new video uploaded from an unknown source. It showed Trump in front of a shiny surface, speaking in a calm, different tone. "There is no invasion. There is no salvation. Return only. The Atlas was not created to travel, but to remember what we left on the other side." The recording ended with a metallic sound, similar to a beating heart. Andrea saw him alone, her hands trembling. Her daughter was sleeping, breathing to the rhythm of that invisible echo that already seemed to be part of the world. And for the first time, she understood that what Emily had called a bridge was not a metaphor. It was real. And it was already open. November 11, 2025. The world was no longer the same. The nights had taken on a golden glow, as if a thin layer of light were floating above the atmosphere. The digital clocks were out of sync every 33 seconds, and in the oldest radio transmissions you could hear, between interferences, children's voices reciting incomprehensible phrases. Humanity had officially entered what scientists termed the FISA phase. Andrea Harper barely recognized the reality around her. People were talking about the same dreams, the same images, the same names. The bridge, FISA, Atlas, Trump, words that previously meant nothing, were now part of everyday language. But the most disturbing thing was the calm. People didn't feel fear, but a kind of hypnotic acceptance, as if everyone expected something inevitable. That morning, Emily woke up before dawn. He walked to the window and looked at the horizon with his eyes shining like two fragments of the sun. "Today comes the final resonance," he said in a soft voice. "Today everyone will remember." Andrea tried to stop her, but the girl seemed to float, moving effortlessly. "What's going to happen, Emily? What are they doing to us?" His daughter smiled. "They don't do anything to us, Mom. It's us. It was always us. The Atlas was not a machine, it was our lost memory. And now we're dreaming it again." At noon, the satellites recorded a phenomenon that surpassed any theory. A ring of invisible energy began to expand from the center of the planet. Inside, the vibration frequency matched that emitted by the 3I Atlas when it was first detected. But the impossible was its origin. The pulse came from the northern hemisphere, directly from Denver, Colorado. News cameras focused on the area. In the sky above the Harper house there was a perfectly circular shape, like an aurora concentrated in one point. Millions of people around the world watched the live stream. And then, the figure of a little girl appeared in the midst of the glow, slowly walking forward. His silhouette was unmistakable. It was Emily. The optical sensors were saturated by the intensity of the light, but the transmissions clearly picked up his voice. "Do not be afraid. The bridge does not destroy, it only unites. They are not going to lose who they are, but remember what they forgot. FISA is not far away, she is within you. Donald has already spoken. The key was turned. Now, the Atlas awakens." For 33 seconds, everything stopped. The whole world, every device, every clock, every radio frequency, was synchronized in the same pulse. The seas calmed, the wind ceased, the animals remained motionless. Humanity held its breath. In that absolute silence, one last transmission crossed all the communication channels of the planet, a grainy, trembling image, showing Donald Trump in an unknown place. Behind him, the symbol of the 3I Atlas shone like a living constellation. The message was understood, he said in a calm, almost solemn tone. They were not warnings. They were instructions. Atlas never looked for contact. He was looking for a return. We are the echoes of FISA. And now, we're back. Then, the screen went dark. Andrea called out her daughter's name, but Emily was gone. In the garden, on the grass, there was only a circular mark identical to the emblem of the Atlas. In the center, a small blue crystal glowed faintly, pulsating at the same rate as the planet. When Andrea touched him, an electric shock ran through his body. It wasn't pain, but a sense of total understanding. Images crossed his mind, golden cities, oceans suspended in the air, human faces with eyes full of light. And a phrase resonated inside his head, "Don't look up. Look inside." The following days were confusing. NASA denied all that happened, although internal leaks showed that the 3I Atlas had changed trajectory and was now orbiting in sync with the Earth's rotation, as if it were waiting. Magnetic measurements showed a progressive increase in energy in the atmosphere, and some satellites began to emit automatic codes with the word FISA looping. Meanwhile, people around the world began to develop memories that didn't belong to them. Children described landscapes from another planet with mathematical accuracy. adults dreamed of floating cities and translucent structures. Doctors called it shared memory syndrome, but believers recognized it immediately. It was the awakening of the bridge. In a last attempt to understand, Andrea replayed the recording that Heller had left before disappearing. In it, the scientist explained that the Atlas project was designed to reflect human consciousness, not to travel physically. Each transmission of free AI was a copy of our own mental signals projected into the cosmos. When the object responded, it was not because someone there heard us, but because we, in the past, did it. Heller's voice trembled. Emily wasn't chosen. She was remembered. She is the older version of us. Fisa was the first Earth. The last words of the message were distorted, but they were clearly enough to freeze the blood. When Atlas fully awakens, the boundaries between times will dissolve. And then, humanity will have to decide whether to continue to be forgotten or to return to memory. That night, Andrea was left alone in front of the garden illuminated by the glow of the sky. The blue crystal was still beating, setting the pace for the new world. Suddenly, she heard a child's voice behind her. It was not a memory. It was real. I told you that the free AI Atlas was already here. Andrea turned slowly. Emily was standing a few feet away, smiling, enveloped in a warm light. It didn't seem like a ghost or an apparition, but something deeper, a living, serene presence, outside of time. Where were you? The mother asked through tears. Emily held out her hand and replied, at home. Everyone will be back soon. Fear not. No one dies when they remember who they are. The figure began to fade into a trail of golden light that ascended into the sky. On the horizon, the glow of the energetic ring intensified until it covered the entire Earth. In that instant, every human being on the planet felt a vibration within their chest, as if the world's own heart was beating in unison with their own. And so, without rumbling or destruction, the free AI Atlas completed its mission. It did not come from space. He had always been here, waiting for humanity to remember his origin. For weeks, the sky held a golden hue, and the nights were filled with a soft murmur that some called the Song of Fisa. No one ever saw Emily Harper again, but thousands of children began drawing her face without ever having met her. In each drawing the same phrase appeared written in shining letters. Don't be afraid of the bridge. The bridge is you. If you've made it this far, you're not alone. What you just heard may seem impossible, but the testimonies, files, and signs are real. And you? Have you ever dreamed of a place that doesn't exist, but you feel like it was your home? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think the free AI Atlas is really awakening something within us? Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and activate the bell if you want to know more stories like this, stories that could forever change the way you see reality. Because maybe, what we call imagination is nothing more than the echo of something that still remembers. See you in the next story.